So we're going to start opening and closing our hands. I've slowed this down to about half because I was Speed Gonzalez through this video, so if it looks a little weird, that's why. But just go at a pace that's comfortable for you. We're trying to do an active movement to call the blood to our joints and our hands. When we have blood, we have oxygen and other great healing aspects that makes the healing environment most optimal. So now open and close the fingers here, squeezing them together, then spreading them apart, and squeezing and spreading. Really try to exaggerate the movements that you're doing here. And my arms are only up this high for presentation and to fit into the camera. So if you need to have your arms by your side, do so, as long as you're doing the same movement. Now, individually, keep touching your fingers to your thumb. It doesn't have to be in this exact order, so don't stress out about the pattern here at all. That's the least of your worries. You just want to get some sort of movement going here. Just a few more here. See, even I'm messing up a little bit too, so as long as you're doing the right pattern. Good, now here's where we're going to keep opening after every single time we touch the thumb with a finger, calling the blood flow even more. Again, if your arms are getting tired, just let them by your side and do the same pattern. So now we're going to stretch out the fronts of our hands. So place them together like a prayer position and try to lift your elbows to the ceiling. Okay, and we're going to try again. This time my palms will come a little bit apart and I'm really starting to stretch there. So as best you can, really try to get that extension in through there. Good, embrace. Now we're going a little bit faster, not holding the stretches this time because we're trying to do more of a dynamic warm up, really just trying to stretch the tissues, call the blood, get everything pumping in there, bringing some oxygen back to those fingers and those joints. So these are great exercises, especially if you have any type of inflammation in the fingers or osteoarthritis, swelling in the hands. Now place the backs of the hands together and you're going to try to move your elbows so they're kissing together. Now this is a little bit too much, so don't do that. You just want to try to keep your elbows straight. Your fingers straight. To almost make like a little bit of a Y. Good. So we're focusing more on stretching the wrists up into the backs of the hands, not the fingers as much as we were on the other ones. A little bit of a photo bomb for my dog, sorry. She wants to go for a walk. Let's just continue that, stretching the backs of the hands. And if you notice here, the majority of the movement is coming from my elbows that is moving and squeezing to my sides. So now we're going to crisscross our fingers, clasp them together, and rotate our wrists in almost like a figure 8. So it's working on the wrists here because the carpal bones are an important part of the hand, an important part of the wrist. So we have to make sure that we're working these areas and muscles and capsules and ligaments so that we have proper use of the rest of the hands, even if the pain from your joints and your knuckles are what's the issue. So now we're going to crisscross the fingers in almost like a braided pattern, and when we switch them, squeezing them together. Good. Because if we move each of the ligaments and joints and articulating cartilage in all different directions, it really helps to make a difference on overall healing ability. Good, and a few more here. Now hold the fingers in place, and we're going to use your elbow and twist in and out, in and out, in and out. Again, we're starting to utilize the different ranges of motion of the joints to really stretch the capsules and the ligaments and the articulating cartilage and all that great stuff in different ranges of motion. And switching to the other side, same exact thing. Stabilize the fingers, hold that in place as our elbow moves our wrist inward and outward. Right, so just a few more. Keep twisting. Okay, this should be nice and comfortable, should not be painful. Okay, so what we're going to do now is grab each individual finger and gently pull. What we're doing here is we're creating what's known as a distraction. So this is basically separating the two joint surfaces. This is very healthy and very therapeutic for the joint. It will help decrease any swelling. It will help to decrease any pain. And it will help to even increase the capsule elasticity around the joints. Make sure you're doing each individual finger. Now, the reason I keep pulling all the way up the finger is because we're also going to traction each individual joint that make up the entire finger. And keep pulling and keep tractioning. So it's normal as well. You'll see a little bit of a gap in between, like where if I were to make a fist, that knuckle part, that is where you might see the most traction. You might see an actual dip. See in the joint, you see like an actual dip. So now when you're pulling it apart here, just twist your hand as well. Just nice and gently back and forth. So this dip that you're seeing here is just the separation of the joint. That's very normal. And if it's not painful at all to do, then continue doing it. The reason why we're adding in that gentle kind of rotation forward and backward is just to work the joint capsule and ligaments and tendons in a different direction. The more that we work the ligaments and the capsule and all that in different directions, the more therapeutic it becomes and the more beneficial to the tissues. We call more blood to the area. With more blood brings more oxygen, and with oxygen creates an optimal healing environment. And keep going in, just the thumb here. Great. So now we're going to stretch our forearms. So a lot of people don't really consider, but we have muscles that go all the way from our forearms and control our hands. So it's very important that we also stretch this out. So you see how I'm grabbing my fingers here and my elbow straight, and I'm pulling my fingers back. We're really now, here's where we're going to start focusing on holding the stretch for longer. So I'm just turning to the side here so you can see the positioning of my fingers. But we're really going to focus on holding this one, because the longer you hold a stretch, the more the muscles will relax, because they're not afraid the joints are going to get injured. Now just reverse. Curl your fingers up that way. So now you're focusing on the back of your hand and the top of your forearm. And make sure to keep a straight elbow. Don't forget to breathe. And gently unravel. Now let's switch to the other side. So same thing. Pull your fingers back here. Keep your elbow nice and straight as we stretch the front of our hands and the bottom of our forearms. This is a very important technique for the overall health and arguably even the circulation down into our hands, for making sure the muscles in the forearms are gliding as best as possible and are stretched. it's not going to be restricting blood flow as much as it would otherwise. Now, it's not the answer and end all be all to circulation, but it's definitely going to contribute, just like drinking enough water a day is definitely going to help out your overall system. So now, as I showed you, switch the area of where you're stretching. So we're now going to stretch the back of our hands and the top of our forearms. Continue to hold the stretch and gently release. So now we're going to press in between each of the metacarpal bones. So in your forearm, between the two bones, you're just going to press lightly and close and open your hand. And we're going between each of the fingers here, starting at the base and then up top. Then you don't have to flip your arm around. I'm just showing you the last part near the pinky and the ring finger, going up in between then, and then in between the thumb and the index finger, opening and closing and really getting in those thenar muscle group. And then we'll switch sides. So right kind of in between the index finger and the middle finger, going up from the base and in between the middle and the ring finger now, as I'm opening and closing, just acting as an active release. And now the pinky and the ring finger, and the thumb and the index. So you don't have to be perfect here. This is just a general kind of in and out motion of you gently squeezing and gently pinching the muscle to release them. All right. So a client of mine has swelling at this joint especially. So this is the moment where I'm going in further and targeting that joint. So what I was doing there was prepping the area around to take even more swelling, and I'm just specifically tractioning and releasing this joint. So if you have any joints in your hands that are more swollen compared to the others, or maybe they all are, then you need to go back at this point. If all of your fingers are swollen, I would pause this at this point, do all your fingers a nice traction, relaxing, and then carry back. And I'm just gonna now make little circles around the joint where the swelling is, just to help break up any scar tissue and adhesions that may have developed around the joint. So these gentle circular motions should not be painful at all, just to help prep the area and release any tension that may be around there. That's it. It's all. It's not rocket science. So now you're just going to gently brush up from where we are working on. We're just going to brush. Essentially, think of it as we just broke up some stuff that was built up there, and now we're just going to bring it back towards the heart and essentially recycle it, so to speak. And now up the other part of our arm again. Luna's saying hi. She bit me that time, so I had to take that out. But just continue now brushing up towards your armpit. And carry on, and we will do the next side. So the reason why we're going there is there's a lot of lymph nodes in that area. Now again, the other side, so interlace your fingers and gently pull up. So this is not something that you have to put a lot of pressure. In fact, actually very light, just gentle pressure is better. And now we'll do the bottoms of our hands and bring it up towards the wrist. So essentially, you almost want to think of you're cleaning up a mess. You're like sweeping up a mess, and you're trying to sweep all that stuff up towards the lymph nodes and like towards the armpit basically, and the tops of the shoulder. So I want to thank you for following along in this video. Please share this video if you know anyone who would benefit from this, and don't forget to subscribe. If you subscribe, that means you'll get notified of all the new videos that I release in the future. So don't miss out. Subscribe today. Thank you for your support.